Like that.
Their roots is supposed to be strong, like you grow eating logs. Not sick. And if she's doing that, God knows what I'm doing. Airport.
All right, guys. About time.
Oh.
I think we're rolling here, and I hope we're recording. Today's the one easy day of this course. So let's just talk about what it's about. And we'll get started for real on the material tomorrow. First thing, you should all have access to Sakai. I think you do. Yeah? No one? All right. If I'm wrong, just let me know. If something goes funny, let me know. So on the landing page for this course, there is a Zoom link, which we'll use if I get in trouble or we make an agreement to do certain sessions via Zoom. So that's by default, that's not used, but I do use Zoom to record in class just because as today, not everyone's able to make it. And so the qualities of those recordings, I think, are quite questionable, but I think it's way better than nothing. So at least some way for people to keep in touch with what happened in class and ask questions, if nothing else. So what I generally do is I make a playlist on YouTube, which is not public. It is it's a private playlist that I share the link with to you guys. So it should show up here, hopefully by the end of the day, because it's supposed to be recording now. We'll see. Okay. Okay, other stuff on Sakai. At the moment, it's pretty empty. Probably I can move some of these items over here that may happen. In resources, there should be a syllabus, okay, which I'll go to next. And there should be the first lecture, which is, of course, introduction, and that's where I really want to spend my time this morning. But we are obligated to have a syllabus, so that's this document. And it has general boilerplate stuff on here, things to call out. There's no required textbook. I don't know. Do you have any required, do you have a course with a required textbook this quarter? Which course? Stats? Is that the only one?
Two.
For the Java class. Okay. Got it. Okay. So when we used to use a book, we used an earlier version of Russell and Norvig. And if you want to have an AI reference book on your shelf, which these days is not a terrible idea, it's not cheap. It's also not easy reading, but it's pretty authoritative. So these guys, again, a very senior AI professor at Berkeley is one of the authors, and the guy who kind of coordinated AI for Google since time immemorial, basically, since they got stood up as a company. And even before that, I knew him as an excellent author of AI material and programmer. So I do recommend that if you want a reference book. But again, it's not cheap. It won't be required, but you will see references to it. I mean, the library, I'm sure, has a copy. And if you get an older version, not the latest edition, okay, pagination might be slightly different, or organization may be slightly different, but you could still get a lot of goodness out of that. Completely up to you guys. Okay. But we did use that as a textbook back in the day. And so that's why there are still, the way the course is organized, I've inherited some of their wisdom and still have some references in the lecture notes that will say, hey, this corresponds to chapter 3 in that book, which, again, will only help you if you decide to make use of it. Other stuff I will talk about in my first lecture deck, which we'll be hitting in a moment. Our schedule, I believe that's all updated. Nominal breakdown for the grading, but tests are generally closed book, closed notes. especially in the era of AI. So at this point, I mean, I really assume that eventually we'll go to a point where AI will probably be allowed in text testing with the same rationale that a calculator is allowed when you do a math course, that it's just a resource you would expect to have in your normal job functioning. But right now, I think nobody knows, including me, how to suss out whether we're actually improving you. If we grade you plus the AI, how do we know that we did anything for you? And maybe, you've taken away nothing. The AI is done doing an A+ job. It'd be ridiculous. And that's not part of what we're paid for, is to provide some kind of discrimination, even if a very coarse one, between who's really mastered the material and who's doing pretty good on the material. And hopefully we don't have anyone below that line. But that's the issue. So that's why when I do give tests, and I think there'll at most be a couple, you can expect that you've got to load everything up in here and come with a pencil, and that'll be it. Maybe a calculator would be fine, but but probably not even that, because most of us don't have a calculator. You use our phones, and phones are bad because they give you access to the whole internet. All right. Any questions about that? Are we good? Okay. Yeah, this recommended reading is still of some use to people who think you might actually want to go further in AI. So we have had several people at this point that's done a PhD in an AI topic after taking this course, often years later. But if you're ambitious and you want to set up for that, then you probably do need to do some reading, and it needs to be more broad than just AI, including stuff like relevant areas of psychology, including areas like neural science, actual science of neurons, not neural networks, which we will be covering in this course. Naturalistic studies of decision making, like Gary Klein's, is the one that's always been the favorite in military circles. And then periodically, I haven't tried to update this lately, but and this is already pretty old, but the National Academy has some publications often that are specific for military simulation. At least they used to. I don't know if they have any recent ones. If any of you come across something and there's something better out there, please kindly tell me, and I'll update my notes here. Okay. And stuff like course outcomes, learning objectives, I hope to give you a sense of that from the other slides I'm going to go through. This is kind of boilerplate stuff that we need to have, and it's not regularly updated, which is the problem. Because I don't do it because if you do update it, then you have to go through a process with their academic council. It's outside of MOOS. It can take any amount of time, and generally don't have that time. So there, I'll leave it there unless there are questions. Okay. I did kind of skipped over it, but we're in this room. It's 1400 every day except Friday, which is 1100. If that's terrible for some reason, we can discuss it. But the bar for changing any times is that literally every student has to be okay with it, and we can't leave someone out just because their schedule doesn't match with yours. It's at this point all the official schedule arbitration's been done, and that wouldn't be fair. All right. Okay, let me just see if there's anything else in here. That's it. All right. Good. Then let's go into the stick of the slides. Right. So this is our introductory AI course. We call it AI for Simulation. In CS, this forked off from CS 3310. That's their main AI course. But already in CS, they basically have two introductory courses. They have one for the stuff other than machine learning, and then one for the machine learning stuff. And that's just the introductory sequence. And then, to be honest, in the top schools over the country, introductory AI is a year-long thing. There's usually 2 semesters. In most places, their semesters are 3 quarters. So we really are trying to do a very condensed, highly focused job on the parts of AI that you are most likely to encounter in your future jobs or on your way out the door. Actually, you're probably most in danger of needing to encounter AI in a meaty way while you're still here, right? Because you're trying to do cutting edge stuff, not routine work. Okay.
It's about the syllabus.
Yes.
When will we have the tests?
So when we get to them is the actual answer to that. So that's not very satisfying, but I'm not sure. Some sections move much faster than others. So there are usually there used to be three tests. Now often I just give two. So it's like a third and two-thirds mark, just as a nominal idea. But
But there's no final for the course?
no final and no, yeah, and then none of those tests is comprehensive. They are unit tests which just cover the last block of material. Yeah.
And the labs are each week?
The lab sessions are each week, but there are four labs generally in total. And the first one is hard to even call it a lab. It's more of like the crawl, walk, run model. It's kind of the crawl lab. Just kind of kick the tires to make sure we're communicating on what labs are for this class. I call that one lab zero, and then there are three other labs. So it's not, there won't be a deliverable for the labs each week. It will be every 3 weeks, something like that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and all the work in this course is individual work, because it's a 3,000 level basic course where everyone is expected to get over the minimum competence bar. Of course, we hope that for the 4,000 level courses too, but we have no choice. When we meet again in summer for the advanced course, then we'll be doing group work, and you'll also be together with some of the CS people coming over. So your advantage will be that I'm trying to direct you onto what you need for the summer course as best as I can in a very short amount of time. But CS people's advantage is they got a lot of AI courses over there and a whole AI track. So some of them end up knowing quite a lot before they come over and merge with you moves folks for that course. All right. But if you work hard, you will be competitive with them. All right. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. So administrative notes. So the very ABCs of any course, like what is it about? I want you to tell you, I want to tell you in my words. Say a few words about why it's important, which is increasingly unnecessary for this topic. It's really very funny. I mean, I've been teaching introductory AI here for a quarter of a century, literally. That's what I'm finishing off this year. And like AI was really kind of this strange, exotic thing that you really needed to explain to students when they came in, like what it's like the bare essentials, like what is it at all? Why is it at all relevant to me? I'm a military professional. Like, why would I want to know anything weird like that? And you needed to say quite a lot to convince people that it might actually help you. And these days, it's kind of gone the other way. And but I'll still say a few words. And yeah, so if we didn't cover it enough already, a little bit about the course activities, use of AI in the course, and so on. Okay. Don't know how long it'll take. Maybe not the whole time. Okay, so by default, all will meet for all of these sessions, but some may be canceled. So we'll see, depending on my schedule, depending on what we're doing in the lab. We'll see. This isn't a huge class, but it isn't the smallest possible class either. So there may be, sometimes I try to throw in some additional activities where I can kind of talk to you one-on-one, because some people are real comfortable. As you all know, some people are always interacting in the classroom setting, and other people almost never interact in the classroom setting. And that's just the way people are. That's fine. But I really like it when I can talk to people individually. We'll have to see if we can get work some of that in. Sometimes we can't, sometimes we can. And this is on the larger size for a section of this particular course, so I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay. You will need an account on Hamming. So have you guys used Hamming yet? Probably not, I would assume. So Hamming is what we call our cloud computing facility on campus. It's extremely good to know how to do stuff on Hamming if you're trying to do AI these days. Okay. For this course in particular, to be honest, that I really wanted because this is an introductory course, we could do all tiny examples. You could probably do it on your laptop, but even then, like if your laptop's grinding away hour after hour on something that's on your critical path for the course, but then you might need to all of a sudden you need to reboot it to do other stuff, send an email or something going weird with your computer. And now all of a sudden you can't do that because this process needs to run another 4, 6, 8 hours because that's the way AI is these days. It's not too comfortable. Whereas if you're off running on a cloud server, you get on there, you submit your jobs, you go offline, maybe you log back in or just kind of see, oh, it's still running. Okay, that's fine. Goodbye. I'll come back in another few hours, and you collect your results when you're done. No smoke comes out of your laptop, and your laptop's always fully available for other uses. So I do encourage you to try to use that resource. I'm more than a kind of the very first lab, which I hope to get into on Friday. Intentionally, I will require this. So you really want to do the sign up for this right away, since this is your first course when you're using. You only need to do that one time. You just go to the link. It's a form. You fill it out. They tend to be pretty quick about it. And then hopefully on Friday, you dip your toes in and see what cloud compute servers are like and what they can do for you. Right? Now, the other thing I want to say is you guys are aware of this all hands meeting tomorrow. Is that a mandatory meeting for you guys? Okay. Then I will ask you to help with the forget piece. The person most likely to forget is me. So please remind me it's right after class tomorrow. So we can just kind of migrate over as if you don't mind, make sure I come along with you because I'm curious what they're going to say, and it's very relevant to this course. And furthermore, I may take advantage of some of the things like the GenAI.mil thing. I'm sure will be part of the discussion tomorrow. That's very relevant for what we're going to be talking about this quarter. Okay. Questions on this? We good? All right. All right, so I want to say a few words about what AI is from my own point of view as an academic subject. So it is this I'll say first, it's very squishy. There's no official definition of AI. Okay, I've worked in AI my whole career, which is most of my life at this point. And the best I can do is tell you, hey, from my point of view, this is how I would say it. And other people will say things somewhat differently. So you deserve to hear from me because I'm selecting the material and giving the lectures this quarter. So I would say it this way. AI is the study of how to build machines that have the information processing strengths of humans, whether to a lesser or greater degree. Okay? Now that's pretty squishy. Like, it doesn't say neural net. It doesn't say anything about a computer. All right. What's that about? Well, that's really how AI came into existence. As we have a task. This is inevitably the way it goes. We have a task that's normally done by a person, and now we're like, well, we ought to be able to make a machine do at least some of that task, maybe all of that task. Okay, how would we do that? Okay, and basically answering questions like that is what led to the field of AI. Okay, so that's why it's squishy. And over time, as things have, it's already happening, but it's happened in small ways before that AI has made certain algorithmic advances. Like the first thing we're going to talk about is systematic search will be our first topic. It's not only just AI courses we hear about that. It's not only just even CS courses. You hear about it everywhere. And on this campus, because there's such a big press on right now to make sure that that the U.S. military is the most capable in regard to using AI, everyone's being pressed to learn it and to use it. And you will see AI courses have sprung up everywhere across this campus. You can go to the physics department and do an AI degree. Just talking about the ones I know, mechanical engineering for sure, operations research for sure, information sciences. Like, tell me where you can't go take an AI course. Okay. Well, everyone has at least their own kind of riff on AI. And what happened over time is that some things have migrated permanently out of AI because it's just become so cut and dried. AI, thinking about AI led to a lot of like some very basic advances in computer science, that after a while became considered to be just part of computer science. It's like, after a while, it's like, okay, this is important enough. It's part of the foundations of AI. It's not computer. Thank you, AI people, for thinking about this, but now it belongs to us, kind of a thing, right? That has tended to happen. And with a squishy definition like the best I'm able to give, you can see how that could happen. Anyone who decides operations research in particular. Now they're almost as squishy as we are over here, but you know, have a lot of uses for certain parts of this technology, and I think they are adopting them, they're sucking them into the core, and they will never release them because they're just very helpful. AI is as old as computer science. If you go and read the writings, which are actually, by the way, very readable. Go back to von Neumann, the von Neumann computing architecture. You ever heard about that? That just means the architecture of a microprocessor pretty much these days. So like everyone uses his work. Turing, the Turing test, right? If something is AI, is it AI or is it human? Okay, he did a lot more than that. And other CS pioneers you see way back from before there even were modern computers at all, when people were talking about just mathematically what could be built and what a computer could be, they were thinking how to imitate human thought in a machine. That was what they thought they were doing. That's how they conceptualized it. So in a way, AI almost like antedates the rest of computer science. So and I used to go through quite a lot about the history, but it's just, because we just have a few weeks and such an unreasonable amount of material is possibly relevant to you as future simulationists. I've had to kind of take that off to the side, but there is a long and storied history. I'll make a few historical comments later, but leave the details for some other context, I'm afraid. All right. Now, the other thing I want to say about it is that so we're talking about building a machine that can process information like a human, right? So I'm not focusing on the software, but most of the time the machine is generic, and really what that really means is you build the software that is going to have the information processing strengths of humans. And in some cases, in particular for simulationists, we really care to try to get very close to human performance with our AI models. Okay, so think about a AI that's going to go into a training system. So if you take a trainee and you're trying to teach them to, I don't know, just kind of the concepts of maneuvering before we're going to actually go out in the field and do stuff, just like get the concepts of where people are supposed to be and how they're supposed to move. And I face you off against a, superhuman AI. So whenever you try to do anything, it's like, oh no, you're dead again. You're dead again. You're dead. How do you learn in that kind of a context? That would be ridiculous, right? So in those kind of cases, we actually want to get close to human performance. We don't want to be way subhuman either. We don't want to make people think that the enemy doesn't do anything and just sits there while you shoot him. All right, we're trying to get in the middle, in the range where actual humans can operate. Okay, but that is actually pretty rare. Most places, including for many simulation applications, the goal is just to do the best you possibly can at some task with your AI code, right? So as an example, so the most basic thing, and we'll spend quite a lot of time on this in our first unit, is just for AI for simulations, is you have a unit here, and the puckster says that unit should be here. Okay. Now, back in the day, he would have to trace the detailed trajectory, and there's still some systems out there where you trace the detailed trajectory, but nowadays people would be disappointed by that, and they would expect that, well, I should just be able to say go here, and the computer should figure out the good way to go from here to there. That's what I mean by pathfinding. Okay, when we go and build a pathfinding functionality for the next generation sim, no one cares that we're plotting the path the way a human does it. Okay, that's not what's on our mind. Our mind is this is just a cost. We have a lot of other things we also need to simulate, and we have to do our networking. We have to do our combat model. We have a lot of other stuff going on. We have visualizations going on. just do it the best possible way and as quick as possible and with as little computation as possible. And that's all we care about. So when we operate in that mode, we're in the mindset of most people using AI, right? I don't care if you do it the way people do it. Just give me what I want in the best possible form and quick and cheap. Okay. Any questions? Good. All right. So and like, why is AI important? It's kind of almost funny. It's almost comical to try to answer the question now. It was hard to answer this 25 years ago. And now it's like, if you just pick up the newspaper, what are people talking about with AI? Well, people are talking about the way what I read is a lot of commentators are talking like the whole economy is being driven by AI. You know what I'm talking about? Now, they're worried that this is just a bubble that if when people got sour on AI, the whole economy is going to roll down. Okay, so yeah, so we all have something at stake there, believe that or not. I will say this, okay, because you're missing the history that I used to go through, spend a whole day talking about AI history, but AI has been through waves of disappointments. If this happens, it will be the third time in history that it happens. If we go through a big thing where people are like, this AI is shit, it's terrible, it's just, what a disappointment, everyone's pulling back their investments. That will be the third time in history that has happened. The first time was way back in the 50s where the AI was just starting up and people had the first results with robotics, a little bit with human language processing. The second time was with so-called expert systems for diagnosing diseases and stuff like that in the 70s. Okay, so don't be shocked if it does end up looking like a bubble that pops and all of a sudden people are wailing and tearing their hair, Okay. Now, I do want to say a little bit more about why it is specifically important to the defense enterprise. I mean, I think you all know that it is, and most to the point, we're simulationists, so like, why do we need to care about it? All right. So this is just my view, and maybe one of you could do it better than me, but so why is AI important to DoD? Well, AI human teaming is like a thing, and it will be a thing for the future. When you're sitting interacting with ChatGPT, trying to figure stuff out, going back and forth, that's machine human teaming, right? And we would like refined versions of that to be probably in all command control systems. So the expectation, at least by some people, certainly by me, is that this is a big uptick in a big way as time goes by. The next big thing is drones. I mean, I almost feel like I don't understand the basics of warfare anymore. I read about Ukraine. It's not obvious to me. I mean, certainly the drones were completely lacking from military doctrine a quarter century ago, and I started trying to read and get up to speed a little bit on military doctrine. I don't know that it's the formal doctrine, in terms of publications and stuff in the Army and the Marine Corps. They tend to do a good job of that. I don't know. Are there new pubs out there that try to do a good job? Yeah, I mean, the best I have seen is something that was like from Ukraine. It was basically Ukraine that someone had taken and translated into English, not just one-for-one translation, but kind of extracted out the main things that were happening on the battlefield with regard to drones. That was the best document I've read. That did help me a little bit. But it's very
The Army did do one there. They sent a general over there to do a report.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's on class and you can get there too.
Okay.
It's a very long report and it's pretty well done. Maybe definitely, yes.
That could be even what I saw. I can't remember where I got this thing. It was reasonably detailed, and I did definitely could use more of that. But okay, so if drones are here and there and everywhere, I mean they are in Ukraine. So I don't know what the next larger scale conflict the US will become involved with, what it's going to actually look like on the battlefield. But from what I understand of Ukraine, my fear will be that it will be very drone heavy on both sides, at least if it's like a peer-peer conflict rather than something that's hugely asymmetric. So the thing is with drones, I mean, the obvious point to me at least, but I think it's obvious to everybody, right? I mean, so like jamming is a thing, right? So if you have a drone that's going out, so it's to the extent. Well, one of the things I learned from this report that I read is the extent to which they're using fiber optic cables, right? These reels of fiber optic. That just seems so crazy to me that you're having something fly fast and then you're attaching a thread to it so you can actually send it a signal. I mean, what is it? It's like a kite almost, you know? But that way you can avoid being jammed, right? But for sure, it's not going to be. I mean, I think there's got to be ways to target those cables. Like that's not the be all end all, the end of the story. Okay. So the cables are not going to be reliable. Then you're going to be back to the electromagnetic spectrum to get messages in and out. And we know that's susceptible to jamming. Everyone understands that. Everyone has equipment that can do that. And so even if you want to take the most anti-AI position possible, and and I'm not. Let me be clear. My whole career has been in AI. I'm not an AI booster for any particular role in combat. I don't know where AI should be used, and it's entirely possible there are plenty of places you really don't want AI. I'm open to that. So I don't know. But even if you're on the side where you think, oh, it's very dangerous to use AI for stuff, I don't want it making too much in the way of creative targeting decisions, it's still going to be tempting. If you're being jammed and the only way you're going to target anything is to delegate the targeting to the drone, I just don't see just kind of the way conflict works. Right? That's what conflict forces you into doing stuff like that you really would rather not do. But it's like, okay, what are my alternatives? I'm either shut down or I have to delegate to this not great subordinate. Probably you delegate to the subordinate. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert
That's
on
not
it.
really good.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope that nobody wants to go down, where
Yeah.
you're not talking about fighting jamming, just talking about creating an autonomous system that you expect to make a decision to kill some human.
Yeah.
So framing it as in you're shut down or you have to make that choice, I don't think is an accurate assessment of the problem.
Okay, how would you say it?
There are maybe you shift away from using those drones, and you do something else. Like the front line really hasn't moved much in Ukraine. Everybody's fighting with drones right now. The bigger systems that are fighting back and forth are like glide bombs that are coming off of fighter jets that are 20 back on front lines. So both sides are recognizing that they're not making a whole lot of progress with this infantry drone shit that they were working on earlier in the war, and they're shifting to attempting to adapt in other ways. I would say, not saying that there's always a way, but I think the speed with which people characterize it as, hey, we're shut down and we lose, or we turn targeting over to an AI is misplaced.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, what would you say to me as not a military professional, not really. To me, what's the difference between that and just kind of the optical targeting that you build into a cruise missile or something like that, right? I mean, it's going to go and it's going to decide this is the military target that I'm going to take out. You do that based on imagery that you back home. It's error prone. It's not 100%. People are going to die at the end of the day, even though you're not directly targeting a person. How is it different? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, people will get killed and people make mistakes when you have an infantryman over iron sights.
Yeah.
Like humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
So machines will make mistakes.
Yep.
I think I could quibble about the individual things you said there, Nick, but I think the point would be at some point we can make luxury decisions of saying, oh, well, I don't want to use that type of drone when we're fighting Venezuela or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I just pick that country at random. If we start, if we were Ukraine in a fight with a peer / exceeds our capabilities, I'm going to let the dog off the chain as much as I can. If it gives me 1 ounce more capability, I can do it.
And that's what history tells me. And if you're not there to do it, what history tells me is somebody's going to do that.
And you'll
but what I'm saying is it's always a level of, unless you're willing to be like, all right, we're just gonna nuke everybody that attacks us. Like, cause I can make the same argument about nukes. I can be like, yeah, well, if Ukraine had nukes, they should be launching them all over the place. Because at a certain extent, it's what is the level of restraint you would expect a combat to have given the current situation, and the situation that they are in is obviously going to drive the answer to that question. What I don't like is the argument, the binary argument that people default to when they're talking about autonomous systems. They say, well, if your life is at stake, you're gonna have to let the dog off the chain.
I mean,
I'm saying, one, that's heavily situationally dependent, and two, those probably are not your only two options.
How
Yeah.
many, and sorry, I swear I'll keep this short.
Yeah, yeah, go
I
ahead,
have
go
a
ahead.
habit of like multi-hour arguments, so I will make it.
Yeah, I'm getting a feeling. Go ahead.
Agrees with that die. That happen. What is the appropriate number if you're like, oh,
Yeah.
2,000
All right.
range?
There's no answer to that question, so I'm gonna break. Okay. So yeah. So this is a good discussion, and the issues are complicated. And you know, I would love to see for Nick to be right. You'd have to have some other tech that would take drones off the battlefield or reduce their potency, and I'm not against that because I don't understand them.
I will point out that Israel
Yeah.
is fielding their prototype laser system that can
Yeah.
theoretically just smoke 1,000 drones. I just pulled that number out of my ass. As they're coming, so like it's possible that in the next 3 years, drones aren't going to be as much of a big.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would
And
I would be
gonna come
glad
up
to
with ways
anticipate
target
that.
those things with a missile, and then they take those out, and then they flood the air with drones. It goes back and forth, but
Yeah,
at any conundrum, it's easy to just be like, "Oh, AI is the solution." You just put an AI on something, we harden it up, send it in.
Yeah.
There are other options. Look in other directions.
Yeah. Not against looking in other directions at all. Have no position on what actually is ethical to do. There certainly are ethical considerations in there. There certainly are just what's practical to do, which isn't obvious either. But I see it as kind of a conundrum. So I fully expect that where the drones are going to stay there. And I'm glad to be proven wrong. And I think they're going to have more and more latitude in terms of what they're allowed to do as part of targeting. That's my guess, just based on my read of history. Now, I don't have any special knowledge. So, okay. What other things I want to say? Well, just anything in warfare that needs to be fast, it doesn't necessarily need to be drones. So if it needs to be fast, you might want to automate it, right? And you may want AI consultation. So I think that's part of that's a kind of a theme of decision maker thinking. That's what I really mean here. It's part of what drives the adoption of AI. And then the other part is just, yeah, put the targeting out where it can't be jammed because it's actually on the weapon, right? There's precedent for that. Okay, so the bottom line is whoever's right about what the future holds, we're all waiting to see. But I think we're going to be fighting using AI. I think that's clear to say. Our opponents will probably also be using AI. This is not a tech which is limited to just a big power, right? I mean, big power probably can do research and maybe get a little better product, but just pretty much anybody can get something. So I think this is what our future holds, and I think we all know over time that warfare, advances in technology have huge impacts in warfare, and this is what we're pressing towards. So we don't want to be the guys on the back end of the learning curve, and other countries are ahead of us. That would be, no, that's not where we want to be. That's clear. All right. So anyway, it's important. So you should be, you probably already are aware, or maybe not. Anyway, DoD has said a lot and has done a lot in terms of organizational structure to support AI policy statements. I'm talking about things like this political declaration on responsible military use of artificial intelligence and autonomy, for example, which I think I quote in the next slide, just as one example. You should and probably are aware that there is a CDAIO, Chief Digital and AI Office. It's moved around in the DoD tree a little bit. The first head of that office was a former NPS professor, former NPS AI guy. And of course, every branch has their own way of dealing with it, but every branch is under pressure to deal with it. Now for modeling and simulation, because AI has been around since the 50s, it's as old as CS, and therefore it's also as old as simulation, and that's no surprise to anybody. And DoD has been trying to apply AI to modeling and simulation from the very, very beginning, from like late 80s. And of course, that was a weird thing in the late 80s. Now today, pretty much every current modeling simulation software that's out there has some AI component that I'm aware. Are there anyone think of big obvious examples that? don't do anything. And there probably still are things out there, especially if you could press down toward smaller simulations that are more niche focused. AI is not the be all and end all. But at least like the big simulations that are like visible to someone like me, I see them all trying to support AI. If they don't do the AI themselves, they're at least aware that they want to let other people come in and build the AI for them, to some extent. Though. Okay, what else? Let's see here. Right. So AI is typically used to automate the behavior of simulated forces in simulation, used for training and analysis. Yeah. So we should discuss that a little bit. Maybe now. I put it at the end. I put it a reminder at the end, but let's see how you guys parse this. So I claim this desire to use AI is motivated by the fact that people want better and more flexible training and reduced costs. So if you're going to think of better by using AI, how is it going to be better? That's probably the hardest one there. And
if your opponent is close to producing an optimal outcome, then you have to be better as a person.
Okay, there you go. That's one thing. Make the AI really hard so that trainees are you're sure you're exposing them to something difficult. I presume not too early, so you scare them, but maybe at the end, let's give people a high bar. Yeah, that's one possibility.
Theoretically, a better approach would be to have the AI adapt to the person that it is combating, I guess, so that the AI is slightly above their skill level or at a skill level that would force the trainee to adapt well.
Agreed. Yeah, that would be a much
possible to win, but it's very difficult because everybody has different skill levels. If you're doing training at a large group level, if you're generally only getting the average, which means that some people are going to be bored by the training because it's too easy. Some people are going to give up what's possible. You could theoretically get rid of that disparity. By making it individual.
Yep, ideal. If you can achieve it, not easy, but ideal. Another thing I think of here is just let's just move on. More flexible. Does that make sense to you guys? So I mean, what I had in mind here is just that if before we had AI to fill, if you don't have AI to fill roles, you got to fill it with humans, right? Which means money, which means that even at the very lowest levels that I can't train maneuvers with my SWAT unless my SWAT is all there to go and play their roles in VBS or whatever. Okay. So that's what I mean by flexibility. It would be nice to be able to say, oh, we were missing half the people, but it's fine. Let's just let the AI run those and we can at least do something. Last, reduced cost. Yeah, that's because the humans aren't for free. Human bucksters aren't for free. In fact, it's a substantial limiting factor for large fleet scale exercises. And sometimes they can't get enough people for any money because you get someone who knows the doctrine and is spun up in the particular simulation that in a general way, and then also knows how to run the role that you need them to run in that particular simulation. That gets you down to nobody. Okay, even if you have money. All right, and that's just the big simulations that are high profile and have a big budget behind them, and most training is not like that. Effective application, yeah. So yeah, this is the other thing I had at the end, but let's just maybe say a few words now because we're at the end of the hour. Somehow I managed to burn up the whole hour. Effective application of simulation in operational systems has been a DoD goal for over a decade. Yeah, so I'm just curious because it's a moving bar. I actually have had some people pipe up and say they've seen some stuff. Are you aware? Does anyone know? What's the state of the art now? So we're talking about an operational system, like a command and control system that would also have an opportunity, have the capability to say back to you, oh, you maybe don't want to do that because look, you're exposing look, this guy can come and expose you with a flank. The idea was that would be done via simulation. That your command and control system is always looking at what you're saying and kind of testing you a little bit under the hood. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But just like in general, like any use of like a live simulation in an operational system, are there any examples that anybody has still for the future? And people have constantly been talking about it that they want it. Again, I don't have a personal opinion about how smart that is, but people are saying that they want it. I guess we're not there yet. Okay. Yeah, I just, if you drill into some of these documents, this political declaration doc I was talking about, you can see some of maybe what motivates the those of us that coordinate the curriculum, and I'm talking more about the Marine Corps, our main move sponsor. That's to say that they really want people to have some exposure to AI. If you look at what's coming down from the top is that states, so this is meant to be like all states that are in the U.S. sphere, like whoever signs on to this should ensure that military AI capabilities are developed with methodologies, data sources, design procedures, and documentation that are transparent to and auditable by their relevant defense personnel. How do you do that without understanding how the AI functions? Very, very difficult, too impossible, right? States should ensure that personnel who use or approve the use of military AI capabilities are trained so they sufficiently understand the capabilities and limitations of those systems. Now, you can take a system if it's a real system that's coming from a defense contractor, and you can like do normal training, and you can get most of this. And I think that's most of what the intent is here. But as you'll find out in this course, it's not real trivial to make a little operating manual and just say, okay, this is the way the AI will behave. This is all you need to know. Read this page, and good luck in your next fight. There really is. These technologies have some sharp edges on them that you can cut yourselves on. Okay, and my hope is that by taking through this course, and maybe through the summer course, you get a little more sensitized to where those edges are likely to be, where to be. To just be a smart consumer of the AI and just say, hey, whoa, tell me a little more about that. How do we deal with this issue or that issue? So that's what I think of reading those comments. Yeah, and note that anything that's, if we're talking about a new simulation product, it's going to be, you guys, I'm looking at you, US guys, you inevitably get tapped to develop the requirement docs for new modeling and simulation products, presumably including the AI aspect of them. So this becomes precisely your problem to figure out these issues. So we hope to help you. Please come back and complain if we don't help you now. All right. Right. So AI is a huge subject. We're not going to spend a year on it like at some other schools. So how are we going to do it in one quarter, in 10 usable weeks, let's say? So the idea is we're going to rigorously cover certain basic techniques. So I don't want this to be an inch deep kind of a course, okay? Because that's not what you got sent here to get a master's degree and just to be an inch deep. You can kind of get there on your own if you're diligent and just kind of scan the web. So we need to get deep at least some places. So for the most important subjects, we'll try to go deep, and then we'll have some lighter coverage of some topics because there's just too many topics out there. Okay. Now, this is what I want to go through this quarter. And I'm sensitive to the fact that I'm at the very end here. Let's take this starting at the beginning of the lecture tomorrow, just because I don't want to shortchange it and allow for questions if need be, because this is kind of the whole menu as I'm seeing it. I change this course every year because this is a field that's evolving, but this is what I'm guessing for this year. So we'll talk through this in detail. I'll tell you what I'm saying, and if this would be the time to say if you have topics that are on your mind that aren't on this list or whatever, to ask how they would fit in, or if we maybe couldn't do something in some other areas. Not that I can spin around on a dime, but at least we do turn somewhat. So think about that, and let's talk tomorrow. And see you then.